Welcome back to The Perspective on Berita Satu. I'm with Paul Grigson, Australian Ambassador to Indonesia. The Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank has got a lot of press. It's got a lot of people on board. We spoke about regional cooperation, cooperation between Indonesia and Australia. For the wider region, how do you see things progressing, especially in light of this deal?
Look, I think with the Asian region, the key issues are that whatever institutions emerge are well run with clear principles that everybody understands. I think that applies not only in the economic space, but in the political space. I think Australia's decision making around institutions in the region will be driven by that set of guidelines.
Do you think you'd like to see more countries involved from further afield?
Look, I think it's a decision for the members to make as we go forward. The key, I think, for Australia will be that it is properly run, that it is transparent in its works, and that there is a sense of economic justification for its actions in the loans that it might make.
Just very quickly, a country, the UK, joined, obviously, from slightly further afield. Do you think that's a particularly important thing for a country like Australia, given that you're here?
Look, I think for Australia, we made a decision based on the merits of the case, and we'll continue to do that. I suspect the UK, a country well known for good policy, has done the same.
Yeah. Speaking of priorities now, in terms of a regional sense, what are Australia's, especially when it comes to economic decisions?
Look, in simple terms, I think Australia has a real interest in the region growing and being prosperous. That often sounds like diplomatic speak. What it comes down to is creating jobs for communities throughout East Asia, including in my own country, of course, and doing what we can to work together to make sure people not only have jobs, but can go about their lives as safely as they can.
And what can we do as a region to achieve that?
So I think there are 2 or 3 steps that we could take. The first is to understand the importance of open markets. No one country is good at everything it does, so we should take advantage of each other's strengths and look to provide consumers with the greatest choice possible at the best possible price. So I think open markets are an important first step. The second is growing cooperation in the security space. We face many challenges, countries both individually and collectively in East Asia, and I think the regional cooperation is a key to that. And the third is, I think, to bolster community linkages between countries. We talked about that with Australia and Indonesia. I think that's important across the region, and certainly from Australia's perspective, we'll continue to push that as an issue of priority.
You mentioned open markets, so just bringing it back to Indonesia, is there anything you would not like to see happening?
So from an Australian perspective, we of course think that we can supply great product at a reasonable price to Indonesia. So the more open markets are, we think the better it is for consumers. But I think importantly, when any government makes policy decisions, my own included, it's not only the producers that are important, but it's the consumer that's important. What is best for the consumer? And I think any country that moves away from that will probably make policy mistakes over time. Indonesia the president has set out a very strong reform program. We're very keen to see him be a great success in that.
Does Australia, after 1 year, it's almost a year since being elected, President Joko Widodo, is Australia pleased with the signs it has seen so far?
Look, we work very closely with the government here across all fields. We had a history of that, and this president's continued that work. We're very keen to continue working with him and his ministers around his goals in infrastructure, for instance, in improving the economic capacity of the country. We'll be redirecting our development assistance program here towards more of a partnership that works for Indonesia and Australia in terms of developing economic capacity.
One of his key agendas is the Maritime Access.
Yes.
Do you see that? Do you see Australia's role within that as being particularly beneficial for the country?
Yeah, we're very keen to support the president in that. There's been both government to government and commercial discussions about how we can best work together. The president has a big agenda. We think we can bring something to the table in that field, and we'll continue to talk to him and his ministers about that.
Okay, let's take a quick break and we'll come back and finish up here with the Australian Ambassador to Indonesia, Paul Grigson.